Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, here's my review of This Is Your Brain on Parasites book. You know, this has got to be one of the most important health books that you can possibly read in your entire life. The information here is mind-blowing, shocking, frightening, you name it. I've talked about this for a while when I kind of found out about this about 2 years ago in a documentary I saw online. And it was hard to believe. And ever since then, I've been talking to people about this to a degree, but really, as usual, haven't had the time to investigate this the way I want to. We're trying to remedy all this, and that's why it's so important that you support IJOS with a few dollars a month so that I can have the time to go into research and not spend all my time running the business and trying to make a few bucks to survive. So this is very important. We want to thank all of those at Patreon, and we recommend people go to Patreon, and you can either just have a low donation, and that's fine. Every penny counts. The whole idea is to get numbers and give a teeny bit that really makes a difference. That's how the world works now, and that's how we can make major change. You can also go to our website and join All Access, which is about $8 a month. It's $100 a year, and this is a great way to support us and get in all of these. You get fantastic information, and what's offered with All Access will pay you back 10 times the small amount that you paid yearly to access this. And the same thing goes with Patreon. We're always putting up good stuff there where you can actually access that saves you some money ultimately by using the IJOS archives, etc. And what this book is one of those that Patreon members can access in the IJOS library. But it's exclusive and you have to be a member. So the whole idea is that this entire book here is frightening. I've talked about the super intelligence of bacteria, parasites, etc. Arrogant, stupid humans think we're the only ones that are intelligent. Animals are stupid. I've heard this for so long, it's absurd. The fact is all we really have is a physical structure, meaning we stand up and have hands and feet that allow us to ignorantly and evilly dominate everything. But we don't do anything really based in the fact that we have such a bigger brain and as such do things much smarter. We don't. We do things as a parasite does, and that's how we work, basically. We're a cunning species of dominators that just do whatever it takes to take care of me, myself, and I. Certainly we don't do anything intelligent. Now, animals tend to do things intelligent because they have no other choice. Secondly, it'd be pretty hard for an elephant to build a car with no hands. And that goes for most species, but they are super, super intelligent. And all animals work from a higher senses. They work from their sixth sense probably 90% of the time. They're sensing, they're hearing, they're using high-level senses, and they're using what we consider the sixth and seventh sense. So this is what they're using, so they're far superior to us. And the fact that we can kill them and dominate them doesn't make us smarter. And brain size means absolutely nothing. This is what I heard through school so many times. Oh, we got big brains, so we can do things. Well, it doesn't. Big brains tend to make you more perverse and evil, and large brain species tend to be sexual deviants and murderers. Every species that has a large brain murders and rapes. Yes, that's correct. Dolphins, monkeys, etc. You got a large brain, you're doing some evil stuff. So it doesn't help you. Do they survive any better? Well, not really. So what we've done is dominate through our cunning to basically act as a parasite. Now, parasite means you use something up and move on. Well, that's the definition of a parasite. And of course, that's what humans generally do, or at least a percentage of humans. And there's a lot of different features here, but let's get into this. Book is shocking. It tells you how all of these parasites are easily transmitted and are everywhere. One of the major concerns, and I don't think people ever think about this, with the huge amount of cat owners, which apparently owning of cats now is at the highest level it's ever been. And I certainly can see why, because of the nature of cats. They don't require a bunch of care. You put a box there and they can go in the box. Of course, I do that with my small dogs. I don't take them for walks. They have a box to go on. So the whole idea is that you can do that with cats. They don't require a bunch of maintenance or anything else to them. So, but they're at a high level of ownership now. And they are the biggest carriers of toxemia that there is. And this worm goes into you easily, and your life is then dramatically affected. So it comes mostly from their feces. But there are parasites in everything. And this is what I didn't know and on the certain line. Now, this book goes into it. I don't really know where to start with this book. There's so much information here, I'm not going to even try. Everybody must read this book. Now, there's a link in this audio where you can go to get it at Kindle, or buy it as a regular copy. I always like to get Kindle books myself because they can read them to you. It's part of the Kindle service. They will actually read the book to you, so you can read it, listen to it, etc. So it's a great tool which I've now used for 4 or 5 years and really love it. So, and I have no stake in that. It's just a good idea. Anything that can be read to you, I think, is a plus to a degree. But hearing a book is different than reading it, and I may go into that in another video. So, it's very shocking how easily transmittable and how many. There may be 1,500 parasites that feed off of humans. It's shocking. There are also things, what's very interesting with a lot of different parasitical, the nature of things is that they will do anything to survive. And apparently the viruses connected to, and I don't know if they're viruses or parasites, they all kind of wind together, and I'm working diligently to find ways to eradicate these in your energy body so that you can flush these things out or just not be affected by them. This is a huge area of study because these are very difficult to get rid of. Once parasites get into the brain, there's a problem. Now, we have to understand that there's parasites that are intestinal, and they're parasites that are throughout your entire body and in your brain. So you're not going to see parasites in your feces. You're not going to see them come out of you necessarily. And a lot of them you can't get to until we figure out how to do it. Now, there are intestinal parasites, but they're in parasites that we're really talking about here, the ones that go into your brain and control you. Now, they control you on every single level. And, of course, one of the things which is fascinating and interesting for the parasite to survive, which tends to may even be blood-borne or is in your semen or sexual fluids, is that a lot of these parasites, particularly rabies, which kind of impressed me here, can be passed days before it becomes active. And several of these parasites may put you in a high sexual overload of sexuality. Your libido goes through the roof because they want you to transfer them to another host. Well, isn't that smart? And they're able to go into your sexuality and change it completely. Well, which brings up to a lot of questions. Of course, sexuality is a major problem in this day and age, which I'm doing a book on here eventually. I'll have an audio course on this. But it's a very, very serious problem that controls all of our lives. Seems to me that this is unnaturally compulsive sexuality, which you'll do anything for sex, males will, and which is endangering your life and possibly killing yourself, going to prison for the rest of your life, just for that instant, very brief satisfaction that you get from sexual orgasm. Yet, females have the absolutely opposite. As a general rule, females are non-sexual. So the whole idea is this is a real problem. Now, why are females so non-sexual and why are males so over the top? Well, there's a lot of factors to this, which I'll go into in my new course and everything else, but this just shows again that there may be a parasitical nature in all males that is forcing them to be more sexual. And this is complicated by the fact that these were even women who were made very sexual, so that the parasite could go into a new person by being transferred through fluids, or even possibly being transferred into a baby that is then born. Isn't that interesting? So here's just another aspect to complicate female sexuality, which is already extremely complicated. But, when we complicate the human condition, in general, we're all individual biospecies, and then we add into that our personal problems, what school, society, your parents have done to you to mind screw you. We add all this in, and then we add in compulsive parasites, which tend to go against all social nature, because they'll make you do things counter what your society tells you to do to an extreme level. And this is what the kind of compulsions that a lot more people have than you think of in so many areas. People may kill other people randomly for this, rape other, whatever they do, which is very society no-nos, may be compulsive from desires, man. It would be very interesting to test people who have done very antisocial behavior to see if they have that. But of course, a lot of people are conditioned into this. Society has tortured them, has abused them, their parents have. And of course, there's no justice in this world. So it doesn't take much to be psychologically warped. But if you add in these parasitical natures, it's going to take a person who's already been hurt and make them potentially up to a very high level where they're going to do things that are completely anti-society, which of course jeopardizes their entire life. They may be executed, they may be put in prison for life. Well, this certainly isn't a solution either. But this is what happens when you go to the things, you do things society doesn't want you to do. And that's what all these parasites tell you to do. But I think it's fascinating. We take something that, and of course, one of the ways that everybody can be easily manipulated is through this vast sexual area, particularly males, it's your number one priority in life. So it's really sad. You think of it every second of the day, 24/7, all your life. Now, this needs to be stopped. I don't think that's natural, and I don't think that has anything to do with hormones. But there is a complicated social problem there where everybody on this planet is sexually unsatisfied. So this is going to cause all sorts of mental, physical problems. But is this added to by parasites? Well, I can tell you 100% that it is. What level, we don't know. But it goes on and on here. And apparently this different parasites can be passed through not well-cooked meats. And of course, there's tons of parasites in pork and other things. And if you look at the societies who are the largest pork consumers, which are the Spanish, the Germans, and I forget who else, these tend to be one of the most psychotic societies we have on Earth. So the whole idea is, and what's interesting is that some of these societies are a little more advanced technologically, but that may be part of the evil plan. Well, let's be technologically advanced, the parasites say, so we can do our job better. Now, there comes to be a bigger question as well with all of that, is that where do these parasites come from ultimately? And I have to really wonder, because this is a small universe. There are huge distances measured by primitive Earth light years, but this may not be a wall whatsoever to an advanced society who can jump through using wormholes, jump with any technology they have, or be able to travel dimensionally to pop in one dimension where they're at into our dimension where Earth is at. So we just don't know. So, looking at the horrendous differences, which are measured in light years. I mean, we don't, I forget how many light years, hundreds of light years to get to the closest star. We're talking about going at the speed of light, and it takes hundreds of years. Now, hundreds of years is an entire generation. So this is frightening to overcome. But it's the stupid human mind thinking that that's how we have to do things. But the point is, other extraterrestrial races have probably figured this all out. So, are there people trying to eliminate their bad experiment? Because let's face it, certainly nothing good about humans. I can't think of a single thing that humans do good. And whatever good is done, meaning helping somebody, doing something in balance, is basically for self-benefit. So if we purify water to take the junk out of it that we put in it or make it better for us, who are we doing that for? So the whole idea, there's really nothing that isn't self-motivated. In general, we're an evil, destructive society. So if you created this, you'd want to figure some way of getting rid of it. Secondly, we have to look at the fact that time is very human. We have a tiny lifespan, and so do most of the creatures on this planet, which is interesting. Certainly something you shouldn't build in. You think evolution wouldn't do that because you need time to figure everything out. So why do people die young? Well, that's a good question. Or species, for that matter. And these can be argued one way or another. But the bottom line is that the average lifespan of a human, which only really has about 40 productive years built into that, is ridiculous. You can virtually do nothing in that period of time. So it doesn't even make sense ecologically. If the great minds of our worlds would have lived to be 200 years old, if Tesla would have lived to be 200 years old, God knows what would have happened. Even the boob Einstein probably would have figured out better theories than the ones he came up with. So the fact that these people are basically dysfunctional after 40 years of practicality is really sad. So where does all this come from? So I still wonder about all of this. I wonder if in terms of evolution in its concept that we're talking about, makes any sense if you have a destructive parasite that kills and controls everything. Doesn't that go against evolution? It's the parasite controlling everything, not you. You don't even have a chance. So these are all the problems as well. And evolution in itself is bogus because you are not controlled by evolution. You're controlled by your genes. Your genes decide your health, your fate, everything. What you look like, if you're fat, if you're skinny. All of these things, your genes determine that. Now you can fight against that. If you're fat, you can exercise a lot, pump iron, and handle it. But your genes are telling you different. A lot of people who go against it, and one of those that always comes to mind is David Letterman, the late night talk show host, who father died young from a heart attack. And he did everything possible to avoid that physically. He weighed like 160 pounds, which is super skinny. He ran all the time, even though it has been noted sometimes he used to run on freeways or close to them or roads, whatever. I don't know if that's true or not. But the bottom line, he's very skinny. He worked out like a madman, and he still had to have a triple bypass. So the whole idea is, I'm not sure how much you can fight your genes. So the whole idea is that you're not controlled by evolution, you're controlled by your genes. So if someone in your family has a particular disease, and this is typical with cancer and particularly with females, that a lot of females get a certain type of cancer in their family. Well, you eat good, you exercise, you stay away from anything cancerogenic, but you still have a great potential of getting it. So people go in and they have their breast lumps removed in terms of their lymphatics and all these things. This is common. I think Angelina Jolie had this done because her mother died of breast cancer and it was in her family. So what do? Well, you remove that. So it has nothing to do with the fact that she has perfect high-level medical care and diet because she's so rich and is thinking about that at least. Or, of course, we think that's the case. We don't know, ultimately, with all that. But it's the genes that rule you, not your environment. So, are genes messed with by parasites? Well, I can tell you right now they probably are. But what even is more, to end this kind of on a high note, is it's interesting that these parasites know exactly what to do to make you into a superhuman. It may be a negative superhuman, but it seems like they know how to go into organs and control every aspect of you. If people have sexual problems, well, these people know how to bring up libido, which seems to be so difficult to do in females. Yet males, it's over the top. So if you can bring it up, you can bring it down. So the whole idea is that these are all things that all of us have to look at. And they're able to affect all sorts of things. And they're able to do this way before these things physically manifest. They're able to control everything you do. Well, I have to wonder if they can control all sorts of things. And can we turn the study of parasites into this super bug that empowers us? Well, why can't we have these parasites? Of course, they don't want that because they're afraid of being destroyed. But why don't we tell them, hey, we're going to keep you alive. Make me into a super psychic. Give me fantastic telekinesis powers. You know what to do. We're just stupid humans. You're a parasite. You ain't got no vertebrae. You ain't got no brain. You are stupid. You know, that's what the humans say. Just like they say that we as humans are so stupid that we could have never built the pyramids or other things. We have to have bobble-headed little freaks come down and tell us what to do. Now, I don't believe that the extraterrestrials have given us much of anything. If they did, it goes back way before anything that is left on this earth. You're talking about maybe Atlantean times, which are 50, 100,000 years ago, and there's no remnants of these societies whatsoever. There are no hunks of aluminum toxic crap they left behind, so we can say, oh, they were advanced, they made plastic cups. So the whole idea is that we need to look at that. The point is, anything that's negative can potentially be turned into something awesomely powerful. Our medicine has failed. Our medicine technology is a load of dung, and it reeks more and more every day. They're failures. Our science is failure. Our politicians are failures. Our military is a failure. Certainly our doctors are failures. We need to look beyond all this. So the golden halo in all of this may be the fact of the proper use of parasites, which cannot be stopped, which breed like crazy and know exactly what to do to survive at all times. Quite fascinating. What's frightening is, of course, we've put our money on the wrong person. We've bet on the wrong number of roulette, and that wheel is spinning, and we know right now 100% that when that wheel stops, we ain't got the number. And society keeps telling us, well, we're going to get it someday. Yeah, that someday isn't in recorded. I will make a great prediction. Before the sun burns out in 50 billion years from now, we'll get a couple of things right. So the whole idea is that that's the reality we live in. We need to change that. But this book is a mind-opening, massive tool that everyone should read, reread, etc. My mind is spinning that I've just listened to all these this book of what the implications here and how they're connected directly to meats we eat that aren't fully cooked, things we tend not to cook a lot, like beef. There are certain parasites in beef. They're not only cats, there are certain parasites in dogs. And these things have been transferred. And there are problems. People don't understand that there is a certain bacteria, particularly from dogs. And I'm a fantastic dog lover and have dogs for the last 30 years, many of them, that people have died from. I recently read a case of a woman who was picked up a puppy. The puppy bit her. And, you always get bit. I've been bit by my dogs many times, and I'm sure people are bit by puppies all the time. They're very mouth-oriented, and so what if they break the skin? Well, some dogs carry horrific viruses and parasites in them that kill you. This woman died from that because, of course, medical science has failed us yet again. So, it's always failed us. We know absolutely nothing. But they're going to tell you how much they do to try and cover their paycheck. Well, it's about time we don't cover their paycheck and say, look, you know virtually nothing. You know 0.5%, and we'll give you credit for that. You're not getting results. The graveyards are filled with dead people. That ought to show you what medical science does. So the whole idea is that, of course, where would you put dead people? Well, maybe you should prop them up in your hallway. But the point is that this is the bottom line of what's going on. So it's not just cats, but cats seem to be something that we have to be very careful of. It seems to be mostly in their feces. So if you're changing your cat litter and other things, make sure you wear gloves. Cat litter probably shouldn't be in your bedroom. You should probably put it somewhere else so there isn't some sort of vapor problem you get from it. How much is passed through air and everything else? But people should be very careful. The other problem, of course, is that there is a bad habit around the world of people not picking up when they after their dogs. And there is a lot of junk in dog feces as well, apparently. Yet you see this everywhere. People step in it. You don't think much of it. You just go home and clean it off. Well, there could be massive amounts of parasites in there, and you may have a little nick on your finger or somehow get it in your through your skin. Well, this is not a joke. And if you got to pick up somebody else's mess, this is notorious, particularly in Europe, from what I can see, and particularly with the lazy Germans who don't pick up anything. They leave shit all over the place, as the sloppy Arabs they are. So the whole idea, this is a problem. If this is happening in your neighborhood, well, it's something to be very careful of, because there's the other thing. If you're taking your dogs out and you're walking them and they're running around, the first thing dogs tend to do is go smell other dogs' feces. Well, this could be a way of transmitting it. They touch their nose to that. They may have got physical contact with it. You take that physical contact home, and you've got some serious problems. Now, at this particular point, it doesn't seem to be as serious as we think, but most people seem to have these parasites in them of one way or another. So the whole idea is that, yeah, you still survive, but you act very strange. Most people are pretty suicidal in what they do. It may be not the fact of putting a gun in their mouth, but why is everybody so fat? Don't they understand that being so fat kills you? Isn't this a form of suicide, which seems to be pandemic in our society, particularly Americans and Mexicans, who are the fattest people on the planet? Well, isn't this a sign of suicide? So, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that you keep craving these things. When you get rid of parasites, you stop craving fats, sugars, and other things. The cravings go down. Parasites love, guess what? Sugar, as cancer does. So you eat a lot of sugar. Why? Well, you're being told to do that, and your brain loves it. But why does your brain love it? Well, is there a little parasite there sitting at a little table saying, "Bring me that sugar, baby"? And what do? Well, it's pretty hard for people to fight against anything, but you're certainly not going to fight against brain messages. So all of this becomes a very, very serious problem, something that we need to look at. And I think this book will be a super enlightening tool that is a must for everybody. Whether you're interested in health or not, you should be aware of this and take some precautions, particularly if you have cats, which a huge part of the population does. You have to be careful what you're doing. I mean, it's good that everybody starts to get off of meat. You don't want to eat meat. You shouldn't eat pork. And what bothered me is that they're saying that there is certain parasites even in beef, which tends to be one of your least parasitic. But if it's not cooked well, which a lot of people don't like, the red inside, a lot of people eat steaks and then give it to me bloody. I'm a Texan. I like blood. So the whole idea is that all these things that people tend to do is very dangerous, even going down to beef. Of course, we know mad cow disease in beef as well. So, all the terrible things that happen in the society also can be linked to this meat chain. How many people are eating this pork that is not cooked properly, and you're getting huge amounts of parasites in there? It's really horrific what pork does. This is why in the ancient books, particularly in Judaism, they don't eat pork, because pork eats everything. Similar to lobsters and catfish, they're bottom feeders, meaning they eat poo. Do you want to eat something that lives on poo, even though it's not human poo? Poo is poo. So the whole idea is that's the reason why you don't eat these types of things. And yet, as I've said, the societies that tend to live on pork tend to be the most psychotic in the world. So how much of this is going on? So, and how much is killed by cooking and how much is not? Cooking something thoroughly means you have basically a dried up piece of junk you don't want to eat. And I would also, coming to that I'd recommend that everybody get themselves a hot air oven. These things cook fantastically at high temperatures, yet seal in the goodness. I've been using one for a couple of years. Fantastic. Grab one. So the whole idea is that these are things that we really have to look at. And I know there's a lot of people that have cats and who are cat lovers out there, and they need to seriously look at this and be careful. Make sure you wash your hands after changing cat litter and other things. So the problems with cats may be a lot more serious than they appear. And you have to be careful with your dogs as well. And you certainly should be picking up their poo when you go out in a correct fashion. You generally turn a plastic bag inside out, don't touch the feces except with the plastic, and then you pick it up and spin it around into the bag. I'm assuming everybody knows how to do that. It's very simple. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea, and I've started to do it myself now because of the pandemic, of having rubber gloves with you at all times. These little medical gloves you can get inexpensively. Well, you shouldn't be touching carts or anything else in stores. You should be very careful. So the transmission of all this may be waking us up not only to the parasites, maybe saving our lives, COVID, in a bizarre backdoor fashion, which I've been talking about for years. Life is strange, and this world, while extremely evil, is oddly balanced. Now, we've allowed thugs and criminals to get into our governments, but if we think about it, the major thugs and criminals historically have all failed. Stalin, Hitler, all of these people have failed. And this goes for most dictatorial madmen. Ultimately, their regimes have not held up. Now, why is that? Because there's a natural balance going on. So if these people are in power, we would be in constant wars and we'd have to eliminate huge parts of the population. So these things balance. So who knows? There's always a silver lining to a degree. But it's the educated, the advanced success scientists, the occult scientists here that will survive and prosper. And those that use subtle energy technologies will be the ones to conquer these in the end. I am working on this and need support to do that. I need to spend all my time in research. I can't. So the bottom line is that's what needs to happen, and we need to look into all these things seriously. But you need information first. This is the best book I've seen on it. And I think there are other books, and I'm going to start looking around for more books on parasites. I'm sure there is out there. This is a great book that goes into it. The implications of the transmission of these parasites and their abilities to control every facet of your life is fascinating, mind-blowing, and ultra frightening. Know about it, deal with it, take some precautions, and that's usually, if you take a few precautions and are a little bit careful, these types of things cannot be easily transmitted to you. But the number of cats and the amount of cat feces that are everywhere, because if they're outside, which a lot of cats are, well, they're leaving their droppings everywhere. How many other animals go and eat it, sniff it? Does your dog do that? Well, that's another reason why I don't take my dogs for walks. Of course, I have small dogs, but the bottom line is that they never go outside. And what is outside waiting for them? What? Cold, nasty, rainy weather, too hot where their feet burn, all the other feces and craps and all the other dogs out there that haven't been taken care of, all the cat feces. Well, it's a good idea not to do that. So, and that goes for exposing them to other dogs if you go to dog parks and everything else. Yeah, let's have the big happy get together and you can commune with the rest of the toxified low-level scum, otherwise known as humans. So the whole idea is that this is something everybody should be aware of. Get this book, read it, and change your life, adapt to it, know what's going on. Put this in your consciousness, and that's how everything works. This goes in your consciousness, and your consciousness, over time, brings back the answers, will guide you to answers. You will then someday be on the net and you'll see a fantastic product to eliminate all sorts of parasites with. You'll be led to an informational page that talks about this, as I was led to this information initially myself. This is how it works. And of course, everybody has to participate in working for an answer to this, and it doesn't mean that any individual person has to do anything out there of a great extent. What they have to do is contribute in a small but dedicated group to contribute a few dollars a month in a group that goes to people that are trying to do something. And I'm sure there may be, I'm not sure, I shouldn't say I'm sure, there may be other people that are working in these areas, but I tend to doubt it. They're not independent. If you work in a university structure, you do what the corporations tell you to do. If that isn't covered by the grant, you cannot research it. So you could find the cure to cancer and they say, well, we're not looking for that. We're looking at how to make rubber better. We want to make tires that run longer. I found a cure for cancer. Oh, it's not covered in the grant. This is the kind of things you run into. Secondly, they're not going to want you to do anything. There's no money in cures, only money in disease. So the point is, all of this comes. You need an independent. Who is independent? Well, the only people that can be independent are those that are getting money from independent sources. And secondly, are at the state of gnosis to figure it out. Certainly, your physicists are so far away from gnosis, it isn't even funny. They're so brainwashed with clown technology, clown science, and clown thinking, they're not going to produce anything but beep, beep, clown talk. So that's what you're going to get from a physicist, as it continues to go on to this day with people like Sean Carroll. I keep picking on this guy, but he keeps saying stupid stuff. Now he wants everybody to get vaccinated because that's going to solve the problems of COVID. So he's going to have guns come to your house and make you get back. Thank you, freedom of scientists, man. That's the answer. And you don't know nothing about medical science anyway. You're a guy that looks at the sky and says, well, we put Play-Doh up there, we can make a sky. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of nonsense you run into. So with all that, people, this is the #1 book. If you don't read any other books this year or for the rest of your life, this is it. Get it, read it, think about it, and work for a solution.